Welcome to today's story. Make sure to subscribe and like the video so you don't miss what's coming next.
Chicago, winter, dirty snow, sharp wind. Smoke drifted upward from thick cigars in the stone-walled hall of Villa Bellini. Morning still clung to the air like a second skin. The dawn was dead, and now every pair of eyes turned to the man molded in silence and steel to take his place. Otto Bellini. He stood motionless near the cold fireplace, dressed in black, from head to toe, not in grief, but in power. The new heir, the future dawn of Chicago. His jaw was sharp as a blade, his presence heavier than the oak beams above him. The table was surrounded by the most dangerous men in the city, Italian capos, advisors, allies, enemies pretending to smile, and in the midst of them, Domenico, his father's oldest consigliere, leaned forward. The funeral gathered all the families, as expected. The old man began, voice raspy. "It's the right time. The Medvedevs are ready to finalize the alliance." Otto said nothing. His hands were clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the carved stone wall like it owed him answers. "Elena Medvedeva," Domenico continued, "the Pachan's daughter. She'll arrive today." Otto finally spoke, voice low and calm, like a man who never raised his tone, only his hand to kill. "The daughter of a viper, gift wrapped in satin. She's valuable. The marriage opens the eastern ports, strengthens the bloodline. Her father is offering her as a sign of loyalty." A sharp breath, almost a scoff. "A sign of convenience, and a cage for me." A few heads turned at his defiance, but no one dared speak. Otto Bellini had been raised to obey, yet everything in his gaze said he was born to command, to devour. Then the doors opened. All turned. Elena Medvedeva entered. Tall, icy. Her blonde hair was coiled like a crown, her expression as practiced as a diplomat's. And behind her, almost hidden by her shadow, walked a girl with downcast eyes, steps light as feathers. Alina Petrova. No one noticed her, no one cared. Except for Otto. His gaze fell on her like a weight, heavy and calculated. She felt it on her skin before she even dared look up. But she did. For the briefest second, her eyes met his. It was a mistake. Otto's brows twitched ever so slightly surprise, interest, something darker. The girl wasn't painted or perfumed like Elena. She wore no jewels, no smile. But her silence screamed, and Otto heard it. "We were just speaking of you," Domenico said, forcing a polite smile toward Elena. She approached Otto and extended her gloved hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you." "Is it?" he replied flatly. She blinked once, controlled, composed. "I bring loyalty and discretion. I hope to be useful to the family." "Obedience?" he asked, tilting his head. "If that is what you expect." "What I expect," Otto said, turning his gaze to the room, "is irrelevant. A Don doesn't expect, he decides." Silence. Then Otto's eyes drifted back not to Elena, but to Alina, still at the back, still watching. "Who is she?" he asked. Elena turned, annoyed. "Just a servant, mute or close to it. Her name is Alina." Alina lowered her gaze at once, a flush rising in her cheeks, but it was too late. He'd seen her, and something sharp and uninvited stirred inside Otto Bellini. "Teach her to lower her eyes when men are speaking," he said coldly. "I don't like insolence near my table." And then back to the business at hand. "Bring the contract. Let's sign this farce of a marriage while my father's corpse is still warm." Later East Wing, Villa Bellini. Alina knelt alone, scrubbing the marble floor of the library. Her fingers were raw, her back aching, but pain was easier than fear. "Otto Bellini noticed you. He spoke your name." "That should never have happened." She was not a guest, not even a person. She was property, silent, obedient. "If he looks at you again, everything ends." Alina had lived her life waiting for a single promise, that when Elena married, she would be free. But tonight, after hearing Otto's voice, watching the way Elena paraded beside him like a porcelain doll, she felt it deep inside. She would never be freed. They would keep her, use her. She was too beautiful to be useless. And then the thought struck her, terrifying, irresistible. What if I chose just once to destroy what they want from me? Otto's chambers. Otto stood in front of his mirror, slowly unbuttoning his shirt. The silence was thick. He should have been thinking about Elena, about the wedding, the alliance, his father's shadow. But all he saw in his mind were dark eyes, wide with something between fear and defiance. The girl who didn't flinch. The servant with blood in her gaze. Alina, he murmured, trying her name like a new language. He didn't know it yet, but she had already become a crack in his armor. And soon, she would be the fire that burned everything down. Medvedev Estate, isolated suburb outside Chicago. The cold crept through the stone walls like invisible blades. Alina lay curled on the wooden floor, wrapped in two thin blankets that barely held warmth. The old clock on the wall read 4:27 a.m. Darkness still ruled outside when the door burst open. "Get up, filthy rat!" Yelena's voice cracked through the air like a whip. Alina rose immediately, not out of obedience, but instinct. Her bare feet hit the freezing floor. Her body ached, but she moved fast, her gaze lowered. Always silent, always invisible. That was the rule. That was her survival. The routine of a prisoner. She made Elena's tea, ironed her gowns, polished imported shoes, handled diamonds she would never wear. And when no one watched, she cried quietly, curled into herself in the basement room that had been her cage since childhood. Since she was 6, this had been her world. A servant with no voice, a body kept intact for its future price. Her father had betrayed the Bratva, they said, leaked information. And so, Alina had been claimed not to be punished, but to be owned. She was to remain pure, unsullied. Because purity had value. And one day, that value would be sold. That day had come. The wedding was arranged. Elena would marry the heir of the Italian Mafia. And with it came the only promise Alina had ever clung to. When Elena is gone, you'll be set free. You'll get your life back, your name, your future. She had memorized those words like a prayer. But prayers, like promises, are often lies. The shattering. That night, tucked in the shadows behind the dining room door, Alina overheard a phone call that shattered the last of her hope. Elena was laughing, careless, cruel. After the wedding? What? Set her free? Laughter on the other end of the line. Of course not. Why would I waste such a pretty little toy? She's worth far more untouched than loose. Alina froze. Her blood turned to ice. Maybe I'll sell her. Maybe I'll gift her. But free? Never. She belongs to the Bratva. Once ours, always ours. The call ended. And with it, Alina's belief in anything good in this world. The birth of rebellion. She stumbled back to the basement, her breath shallow, her hands shaking. But what filled her wasn't just despair. It was something unfamiliar, sharp. It was rage. Rage for the lies. Rage for the chains around her body. Rage for being raised like a product instead of a person. She sat on the floor, head spinning. If my virginity is what keeps me in chains, then I'll destroy it. The thought pulsed inside her. Wild, unthinkable. But it was hers. The only choice that was truly hers. The escape, midnight. Alina slipped out through the service door, wearing an oversized coat and boots 2 sizes too big. The wind bit at her cheeks as she ran through the empty streets, breath quick, hands clenched. She didn't look back, not once. She took a bus downtown, shaky, slow, full of ghosts. And when she stepped out, she found herself standing in front of a nightclub. It was the furthest place from the estate she could imagine. Inside, red lights pulsed like veins. Music vibrated through the floors. People drank, laughed, touched. For the first time in her life, Alina Petrova was among the free. She sat at a table in the back, alone, her heart hammering. She would wait. Someone would come. Anyone. Not for love, not for pleasure, but to ruin the one thing they all wanted to preserve. And then, he walked in. The arrival of Otto. Otto Bellini stepped into the club like it belonged to him. It wasn't his usual scene, but tonight he didn't want power. He didn't want protocol. He wanted to forget. His eyes scanned the crowd without focus until they locked onto something unexpected. Her. Sitting alone, wrapped in a worn coat, big, haunted eyes. The servant, the Russian girl, the one with the silence in her bones. But she didn't recognize him. And for Otto Bellini, that was intolerable. She forgot me. She dares not to see me. A slow, dangerous smile curved his lips. And then he began to walk toward her. The music inside the club throbbed like a disoriented heartbeat. Red lights pulsed from the ceiling like flashing veins. People danced, touched, drank, lost themselves. But Alina Petrova sat completely still. Tucked into a shadowed booth, her fingers wrapped around a half-empty glass of water. She looked like she didn't belong. An oversized coat cloaked her body, and her hood partially shaded her face. She was a silent island in the middle of chaos. Pick someone, any man, a stranger, an ending. But every face that passed her seemed wrong. Too drunk, too old, too loud. Until he appeared. Or rather, he saw her first. Otto's eyes. Find her. Otto Bellini leaned against the bar, a dark presence in a sea of forgettable men. His suit was unbuttoned, shirt collar loosened, the weight of power still clinging to his every movement. Then his gaze fell on a girl sitting alone in the corner. Small, tense, fragile. Her. Alina Petrova. The silent servant from the Medvedev estate. The girl who had dared to meet his eyes once without fear. The girl who haunted his thoughts since the morning he met her. And now, she sat there, not recognizing him. Otto didn't move. He watched, waiting for the flicker of recognition. But Alina looked right at him, and then looked away. No reaction. She didn't know who he was. She doesn't remember. She forgot me. Something dark twisted in his chest, not pain, but sharp, possessive rage. And hunger. He had to see more. Had to take her. Approach. He walked across the room with quiet authority, stopping in front of her table like a shadow settling over her. Alone? He asked, voice low and smooth, like silk stretched over a blade. Alina's head lifted, startled. His voice was deep, his presence overwhelming, but she didn't recognize him. Yes. Waiting for someone? Maybe? Otto pulled out the chair and sat across from her, uninvited. The music faded, the lights dulled. For her, there was only this man. You don't belong here, he said, watching her carefully. And you do? She asked, with more bite than she expected from herself. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. More than you know. The game begins. Alina stared at her hands, embarrassed. Her chest felt too tight. But something inside her whispered, louder than fear. It's him, with him, now. She didn't know his name. He didn't ask for hers. And she didn't offer it. This wasn't about names. It was about shattering the chain they built around her body. Otto watched her like a hunter circling prey. Every tremble in her fingers, every breath caught in her throat. It all fed the beast inside him. "Do you have a name?" he asked, voice lower. She hesitated, then lied. "Lena." He noticed. The lie was delicate, childish, but he let it stand. He wanted to see how far she would go. The choice. "Do you want to leave?" he asked. She didn't answer with words. She simply nodded. She had no idea that she was walking straight into the arms of her fate. The room. The hotel was upscale, quiet, wrapped in velvet and shadows. Otto let her walk in first, then locked the door behind them with a sharp final click. Alina stopped in the center of the room. Her heart felt like it was breaking from the inside out, not from sadness, but from the weight of what she was about to do. He removed his jacket, slowly, eyes never leaving her. "Are you sure?" he asked, voice deeper now, strained. She closed her eyes, breathed in. Yes. The first time, there were no sweet words, no gentle build-up. It was raw, focused, intense from the first moment. He didn't rush her, but he didn't hold back either. As soon as he realized she was a virgin, something inside him shifted violently. They were saving her. For someone else, for a deal, for a future she never chose. But now she was his. And no one would ever touch her again. Her moans were soft, like secrets never spoken before. And Otto Bellini knew he would remember the sound for the rest of his life. Dawn. When Otto woke, the sheets were stained with blood. And she was gone. No name, no note, no trace. She had no idea that the man she'd just given herself to was Otto Bellini, the future Don of Chicago, her enemy, her owner, her damnation. But he knew exactly who she was. The servant girl, the silent shadow, the one who fled, and the one who just might be carrying his child. Morning light slipped through the gaps in the thick hotel curtains, casting soft golden shadows across the room. Otto Bellini opened his eyes. The bed beside him was empty. The warmth was fading. The scent of her still lingered. He sat up slowly, his eyes falling on the sheets. A small stain of blood, stark, red, undeniable. She had been a virgin. And now, she was gone. No name, no note, no trace. Otto sat at the edge of the bed, his hands dragging down his face as his thoughts stormed around him. Then, without a word, he stood, naked, walked to the window, and lit a cigarette. The city was waking up unaware that something had shifted inside the man who ruled its shadows. She disappeared. And she doesn't even know who I am. That thought that she didn't recognize him burned worse than any insult. And worse yet, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Back at Villa Bellini. A few hours later, Otto stepped into his estate. He was quieter than usual, colder. Even the guards noticed the change. In the main hall, Domenico waited with a folder full of updates on the upcoming wedding. "We need to finalize the Medvedev guest list. Elena's father insists on—" "Not now." Otto's voice was sharp, final. He walked over to the bar, poured himself a drink, and downed it in one motion. Then he turned, staring straight at Domenico. "I want the full list of staff at the Medvedev estate. Servants, drivers, cooks, anyone who lives or works there. Names, ages, photos." Domenico frowned. "What for?" Otto leaned forward slightly, his voice lower, darker. "Because a woman left my bed without permission, and she thinks I won't find her." Medvedev estate. That same day, back in the cold, dim basement of the Medvedev mansion, Alina sat on the floor with her arms wrapped around her knees. She still wore the same oversized coat from 2 nights ago. The fabric smelled of sweat, smoke, and him. She hadn't slept. Her body still ached in places she never knew could feel pleasure or pain. But it wasn't the physical discomfort that haunted her. It was him. His voice. His hands. The way he looked at her, like he could see past her silence, her fear, her lies. I don't even know his name. But he knows things about me that no one else ever saw. And deep down, Alina felt it. She hadn't escaped anything. If anything, she had opened a door she couldn't close. Otto finds her SAR. 2 days passed. Then, Domenico entered Otto's office, a large envelope in hand. I found her. Otto stood, took the file, opened it with steady hands. Photo, name, record. There she was. Alina Petrova. Domenico read aloud. Personal servant to Elena Medvedeva, daughter of a Bratva trader, raised under watch, marked as silent, submissive. Otto's jaw tightened. He stared at the picture longer than necessary. She's not submissive. She's smart. She ran. His eyes darkened with something deeper than anger. Something feral. Send a team, quietly, no noise, no warnings. Domenico hesitated. She belongs to the Medvedevs. Elena won't like. Otto's eyes sliced through the hesitation. She belongs to me now. Then, colder, and if she's carrying my child, the wedding to Elena can burn. Medvedev estate. 3 days later, the basement where Alina lived felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the early bite of winter. Or maybe it was something else. Something invisible, heavy, watching. The servants were restless lately. Doors slammed harder. Whispers lasted too long. People glanced at her with something that looked like pity. Alina didn't know what was happening, but she could feel it. Something or someone was getting closer. Otto makes his move. In the dim silence of his office, Otto Bellini stared at the floor plan of the Medvedev estate, studying every inch with a predator's patience. He had learned long ago, the ones who rushed in died first. He wouldn't make that mistake. She's still there? He asked, eyes locked on the blueprint. Domenico stood near the window, arms crossed. Yes. Our source says she hasn't left the property since that night. Otto leaned back in his leather chair, hands steepled beneath his chin. She thinks she's safe. Thinks she can disappear. She didn't understand. She had crossed an invisible line, and now she belonged to him. The silent order. No direct contact with the Russians, Otto said, calm but firm. I want eyes inside the estate. Embedded staff, kitchen workers, gardeners, anyone. Domenico hesitated. If the Pacan finds out... Otto gave a dry, dangerous smile. He's about to hand me his daughter as a bride. He won't start a war over a servant. His tone was cold, dismissive. But his eyes... His eyes said something else entirely. Possession. Obsession. A slow descent into madness. Alina feels it. Back at the estate, Elena was sipping tea, flanked by 2 new guards Alina had never seen before. The head chef had been replaced. The housekeeper no longer spoke to her. Everything was changing. Too quietly. That afternoon, while crossing the main hallway, she felt it. A gaze, sharp, piercing, burning through the back of her neck. She turned quickly. Nothing! But her skin prickled. It remembered something, someone. Something in her body recognized the weight of that look. The kind that didn't just see her. It claimed her. Otto watches her. From the tinted window of a black car parked 200 meters from the estate, Otto watched her through high-tech binoculars. His expression was unreadable. His jaw tense. She walked across the courtyard, carrying a laundry basket. Her hair was tied up messily. She wore loose, dull clothes, a thick coat that hid her frame, but he remembered every inch beneath it. She has no idea. She walks like she's still free. But she's not. She was the rope around his throat, the wound he couldn't stop touching. He needed her back under control, or he'd lose himself. Decision made. Otto stepped out of the car slowly, like a man who had already decided everything. Beside him, Domenico adjusted his tie nervously. "What are you doing?" Otto lit a cigarette, eyes locked on the house ahead. "I'm going in." "Now?" "Yes, as a polite fiancé, a future son-in-law. But when I leave—" He exhaled smoke, voice low and certain. "She's coming with me." The afternoon sun cast golden light through the tall windows of the Medvedev mansion, but inside, the air was thick with tension, heavy enough to choke. Elena sat poised in the main hall, flawless as ever, waiting for her fiancé. Otto Bellini entered through the grand doors like he owned the place. "Mr. Bellini," the Pacan greeted him, rising. "Here to see your bride?" "And to survey the territory that will soon be mine," Otto replied with a cold, controlled smile. The meeting proceeded with polite words and political pleasantries. But Otto's eyes were elsewhere, searching for a shadow. A girl. The one who never bowed. The encounter in the hallway. After the meeting, Otto asked to walk the house, alone. No one dared refuse. Alina was coming out of the servants' wing, carrying a tray of tea, when she felt that same piercing gaze. Her blood froze, her body stiffened. She turned slowly, and there he was. The man from the forbidden night. The burning touch. The deep voice she had tried to erase from her mind. "You," she whispered. "So now you recognize me," Otto said, stepping closer. She took a hesitant step back. "You shouldn't be here." He took another step, then another. "But you are, aren't you? In this house, this game, pretending to be invisible." Alina clutched the tray to her chest like a shield, heart pounding wildly. "I didn't know who you were." Otto stopped just inches from her. "But I knew who you were." A pause. From the very first glance that morning, in the room where everyone bowed, except you. The proposition, or the threat. "What do you want from me?" Alina's voice trembled. Otto tilted his head, studying her face. No makeup, no artifice. Her beauty was raw, real, dangerous. "I want you to come with me." "Why?" Otto smiled a dark, knowing smile. "Because now you belong to me." She let out a nervous laugh. "You can't own me. I'm not yours." Otto stepped closer still. His scent wrapped around her tobacco, wood, desire. "Then why did you run?" Alina said nothing. "Why didn't you look back? Why did you flee like you'd committed a crime?" The tray slipped from her hands, clattering to the floor with a harsh metallic sound. "Silence." He leaned in, whispering, "You ran from the bed of a Bellini, and that has consequences." The irrevocable decision. Minutes later, no one noticed when Otto slipped out the back of the mansion. No one noticed when he drove away, with Alina curled up silently in the back seat, not saying a word. No shouting, no resistance. She knew if she screamed, no one would come. She knew this was no choice. It was fate. Otto started the engine and glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "You're staying at my place until I find out one thing." She said nothing. "Whether or not you're carrying my child." Soft morning light filtered through the vast windows of the Bellini mansion, illuminating every detail of the room where Alina slowly stirred awake. The heavy scent of tobacco and wood lingered in the warm air, while distant male voices echoed faintly down the ornate corridors. She opened her eyes slowly. Her head throbbed, and her body still carried the weight of the previous night, a mix of desire, fear, and confusion. Sitting up, her gaze swept the room. Antique furniture, walls paneled in rich wood, heavy curtains, and a grand crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. She was inside a gilded cage, the reality of imprisonment. The door opened without warning. Otto entered, his footsteps deliberate, his expression unreadable. "You're awake," he said, his deep voice filling the space. Alina remained still, her chest tightening. "Where am I?" "In my home." He stepped closer, eyes fixed on her. "You will stay here until I am certain of something very important." She stared back, fighting to hide the fear clawing at her insides. "Why? What do you want from me?" Otto paused near the window, folding his arms. "You ran from me, you defied me, broke the rules." He turned slowly, voice dropping to a whisper. "Now you belong to me, and nothing will ever be the same." The first steps of coexistence. The following days blended tension, silence, and quiet confrontations. Alina struggled to adjust to the mansion's rhythm, exquisite meals, attentive servants, and Otto's sharp eyes tracking her every move. He was stern and controlling, but occasionally revealed a different side, vulnerable, almost human. One evening, he appeared at her door, holding a glass of wine. "You don't have to be my prisoner," he said, his gaze softening for the first time. She looked at him skeptically. "Then why don't you let me go?" He gave a sad smile. "Because you're already part of my world, and I'm part of yours." The weight of the promise. In the stillness of the night, Alina let herself think of the future. The fear, the uncertainty, but also a strange hope. Could something real be found amid the chaos? Could love rise from the ashes of obligation and possession? She didn't know. But something inside her was beginning to change. Nights in the Bellini mansion grew longer, filled with uncomfortable silences and glances heavy with unspoken questions. Alina knew that in this world, everything had a price, and behind every gesture, hidden intentions lurked. An unexpected discovery. One evening, during a rare moment of freedom, Alina explored the house and found a small room hidden behind a bookshelf in the library. Inside, files, photographs, and documents were scattered across an old wooden table. Curious, she began to examine the material. What she saw froze her in place. An old photograph of her father standing next to Otto Bellini. She had no idea they had known each other. And more shocking still, Otto's face wasn't just that of an enemy, but of someone who held deep secrets from that past. A haunting past. The next morning, Otto noticed something had changed in her, the distant look, the restlessness. He decided to confront her. "What did you find in the library?" he asked, his voice firm yet curious. Alina hesitated, then chose to face the truth. "Photos, documents, your name alongside my father's." He was silent for a few seconds before sighing deeply. "My past is more intertwined with yours than you realize. There are stories no one here can tell, secrets that must remain buried." A dangerous offer. Otto stepped closer, his voice low and heavy with meaning. "I can protect you from all of this. But you have to trust me. Truly." Alina looked at him with a mixture of fear and defiance. "How can I trust someone who imprisoned me and betrayed me?" He grasped her hands firmly. "Because, in this game of shadows and lies, only I can guarantee your safety. But it comes at a price." The beginning of an alliance. They stood in silence, the unspoken words lingering in the dense air of the room. Alina felt the weight of the dilemma. Accepting Otto's protection meant surrendering part of her freedom. But refusing it could mean something far worse. And deep inside, a fragile thread of hope began to form. The morning sky over the Bellini mansion was a deep, moody gray, but across the city, within the opulent walls of the Medvedev estate, Elena stirred with a sense of absence she couldn't ignore. Elena notices Alina's disappearance. Elena paced the grand sitting room in her signature black, flawless as always, but her eyes betrayed something unusual unease. "Where is that girl?" she snapped, her tone sharp and cold. "Find her. Search every room, every hallway. I want her back." The staff scattered, obeying without question. Alina's absence had disrupted the rhythm of the household, but more than that, it left Elena feeling abandoned, though she'd never admit it. Otto reveals the truth. Meanwhile, inside the dark-paneled study of the Bellini mansion, Otto stood facing the window, hands behind his back. Alina sat opposite him, her nerves taut, her gaze fixed on the floor. His voice broke the silence, calm but heavy. "Do you know why your father was labeled a traitor?" Alina raised her eyes slowly. "I only know what they told me," she whispered. "That he betrayed the Bratva, that his blood made me worthless." Otto turned, his expression unreadable. "He saved my life." Her breath caught. "What?" "Years ago, when I was still too young to inherit the Bellini name, I was ambushed during a meeting in Odessa. Your father shielded me, took a bullet that was meant for me." She stared at him, her skin paling. "But why would they call him a traitor?" "Because saving the enemy's son was a crime to them. Your father's loyalty was never to power. It was to honor." Collapse. Alina felt the room closing in. Her knees buckled. Otto was at her side in an instant, catching her before she hit the floor. "Easy," he said softly, holding her close. His grip was protective, not possessive for once. There was no force, only concern. She closed her eyes, fighting the dizziness. Her entire life had been shaped by a lie, a branding, a punishment for a hero's choice. The test. Later that evening, once Alina had rested, Otto returned to her room not as the Don, but as a man burdened with truths. He placed something in her hand. "We need to know if you're pregnant." Alina looked at the test. Her hands shook. "And if I am?" Otto didn't answer, not with words. Just a long, unreadable stare. She disappeared into the bathroom. Minutes passed, long, aching minutes. When she returned, her face was pale, lips parted slightly. "It's positive," she whispered. Silence. Otto took a slow step forward, eyes fixed on her. "Then everything changes now," he said quietly. "For both of us." The news spread like wildfire. The Pahan of the Russian Bratva had learned what no one dared to say aloud. Alina Petrova was alive, living under the protection of the Italian Mafia, and pregnant, with the heir of the Bellini family. In the grand halls of the Medvedev estate, Elena descended the staircase like a storm. Her perfect features couldn't hide the fury boiling beneath the surface. "She's alive?" she hissed. "And she's with him?" A senior servant bowed nervously. "Yes, miss. And there are rumors she carries Mr. Bellini's child." Silence. Elena's hands clenched at her sides. Rage surged through her. She was a servant, a shadow. How dare he choose her? Her voice trembled with disbelief and humiliation. "He discarded me. For her." The Russian response. At the head of a long table, the Pahan listened with cold fury. His advisors stood still, tense, waiting for his word. "We want the girl back," he said. "And the child. That baby is Bratva blood. She belongs to us." "If Otto Bellini refuses?" He looked around the room, his voice low and lethal. "Then let there be war." The confrontation. That night, Otto Bellini walked into the Medvedev estate alone. His presence filled the room like a storm front. Everyone knew who he was, what he represented. Elena waited in the main hall, her beauty sharp like glass, her fury volcanic. "So it's true," she said through clenched teeth. "Yes," Otto replied calmly. "You humiliated me. You chose a servant over me." He met her gaze, unwavering. You were never mine, Elena. This was always about politics, never about love. From the shadows, the Pacan stepped forward, tension humming in the air. You dare break this alliance, Otto? Yes, I do. You realize what that means. Otto's voice dropped, cold and resolute. Let it mean whatever you want, but I'm done playing your game. The Pacan's jaw clenched. Then prepare for blood. Otto turned and walked out without another word. The proposal. Back at the Bellini mansion, Alina stood by the fire, hands over her stomach, her thoughts spinning like a storm. Otto entered, his expression grim. They know, he said. The Russians? Yes, and they want you back. With the child. Her eyes widened, her breath caught. Will you give me to them? He stepped closer. No, but there's only one way I can protect you now. He knelt in front of her, not as a Don, but as a man with nothing left to offer except control. You need to become my wife. She stared at him, frozen. Marriage? A legal, binding marriage. They won't be able to touch the mother of my heir, my wife. The hesitation. Alina took a step back, her voice trembling. Are you asking me to marry you, or sentencing me to a new prison? I'm offering protection, he said quietly. It's all I have, all I can give. You don't love me, she whispered. And you don't trust me, he replied. But the world out there is far crueler than I'll ever be. The decision. Hours later, under the quiet light of the terrace, she gave her answer. I accept. Why? She turned toward the horizon. Because this is no longer just about me. It's about someone who didn't ask to be born into this war. I'll protect them even if it costs me everything. Otto didn't speak. He simply pulled a ring from his pocket and slid it onto her finger. Now no one else can touch you. Final line, the new cage. Alina looked at the ring, cold, heavy. You didn't set me free, Otto. You just built me a new cage. The news traveled like poison through the veins of the underworld. Within hours, the most powerful mafia circles across America and Europe knew. Otto Bellini had married Alina Petrova, a maid, the daughter of a supposed Bratva traitor. Now, the wife of the future Don of Chicago. The mafias react. In Moscow, the Bratva's response was swift. The Pacan hurled a crystal vodka bottle against the wall the moment the news was confirmed. He disgraced the alliance, chose a bastard girl over my daughter. Strike the Bellini name from our book of honor. No one at the table dared speak. In Chicago, Otto's council convened in haste. Among the older men, unrest brewed. You've made a reckless decision, Otto, said Lorenzo, the most traditional. You broke a decades-long alliance over a woman, a servant. Otto sat calmly, fingers tapping the armrest of his chair. His expression didn't flinch. I don't ask permission to protect what's mine, he said at last. And she is mine now. She carries my heir, that's enough. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. The secret ceremony. That gray morning, without music, flowers, or celebration, Otto and Alina were married in a private chapel owned by the Bellini family. The stone walls, blanketed in ivy, bore witness to a pact made out of necessity, not love. Alina wore a white dress, simple and unadorned. Her eyes were dry, her face unreadable. Otto stood beside her, sharp in a black suit, cold as stone. When the judge asked if she accepted the man before her, Alina hesitated, only for a second. Yes, she said. Otto didn't pause. Yes. The ring slid onto her finger like a shackle. Cold, final. Post-wedding conversation. The ride back to the mansion was quiet. The armored car sliced through the streets like a steel ghost. Inside, the silence was suffocating. Is this what you wanted? Alina finally asked, her voice steady but tired. Otto didn't look at her. I wanted to make sure no one else ever touches you. That's enough for me. She turned to the window, the weight of the ring heavy on her hand. You protected me, but you never asked what I wanted. In our world, wanting is a luxury, he replied. A new threat rises. Later that day, Otto received a report. Breathless soldiers had been spotted in Chicago, undercover, watching Bellini properties, key locations, known allies. The war was no longer a threat. It was already moving. They won't wait long, warned Marco, his right-hand man. They're setting up for the first strike. Otto nodded slowly, jaw tight. Then we'll be ready. The council and the idea. That evening, Otto gathered his inner circle in the estate's war room. Tension pulsed through the air. We need to reinforce our perimeter, said one. Lock down the ports, pull back exposed assets. They'll strike where it hurts, muttered another. We may need to negotiate. Otto stood by the window, silent, staring out at the city. They spoke around him, planned, warned. Then finally, he turned slightly, just enough to speak. Maybe. There's another way. All eyes turned to him. But Otto said nothing more. The Bellini mansion had grown quieter than usual. Since the wedding, the corridors seemed to watch Alina with invisible eyes. Otto's men, even the most seasoned, cast her cautious glances as she passed. The maids whispered behind her back and lowered their eyes when she entered a room. She was no longer a servant. But she wasn't a queen either. She was a symbol, a shield, a political pawn. And it was killing her, slowly. The weight of a new cage. On the third day after the wedding, Alina wandered through the garden in silence. Guards followed at a distance Otto's orders. The ring on her finger felt heavier with each step. It didn't bind her to a man. It bound her to a war. She entered the library, seeking refuge among books she couldn't yet fully read, in a language she was still learning. Alone at last, she cried. Quietly, discreetly. The way people cry when they've been taught to never be heard. The confrontation. That afternoon, Alina reached her limit. She stormed into Otto's strategy room, where he was meeting with his advisors. The heavy door slammed open, startling the men inside. We need to talk, she said firmly. Otto's eyes rose slowly to meet hers, cold and unreadable. Not now, Alina. Now. Silence. Leave us, Otto ordered. When the room cleared, she stepped closer. You married me, locked me in here, surrounded me with guards. But you never once asked me what I wanted. Otto crossed his arms. You're safe. Safe isn't the same as alive, she shot back. You see me as a problem, not as a woman. They stared at each other, the tension between them thick and electric. Careful with your tone, he warned. What will you do? Silence me like one of your enemies? Her voice didn't waver. I'm your wife, not your prisoner. He stepped toward her. She didn't flinch. You're playing with fire. Maybe I'd rather burn than disappear. His eyes dropped to her lips, hers to his. Everything stopped. But just before their mouths met, Otto turned away and walked out. He watches her. Hours later, Otto passed the library again. She was there, alone, reading, one hand on her belly, silent. And for the first time, he didn't see her as a threat or a responsibility, but as a woman who dared challenge him, a woman who, against all odds, carried his child. The visit, Donatella Bellini. Later that evening, an unexpected figure arrived at the gates of the estate. Donatella Bellini, Otto's mother. The matriarch walked in, dressed head to toe in black, her presence commanding, her eyes sharp as glass. She demanded to meet Alina. The encounter was cold, measured. Donatella didn't smile, she simply observed. Later, In private, she spoke to her son. She's stronger than she looks. If you don't treat her right, Otto, you'll lose more than this war. The night. The room was quiet when Otto entered. Alina sat by the window, wrapped in a soft blanket. She didn't look surprised to see him. She didn't speak. He approached her slowly. "You were right," he said. "You're not my prisoner. You're my wife." Her eyes widened slightly. Otto knelt in front of her, gently placed a hand over her belly, and whispered, "I'll protect both of you, even if I have to burn the world to the ground." His voice was low, raw. She touched his face carefully, hesitantly. It was the first time she reached for him. And then, they kissed. It wasn't soft. It was heavy with rage, confusion, longing, fear, and something they hadn't yet named. But in that moment, something shattered. And something else began. The Bellini mansion was still asleep when Otto rose. He dressed in silence, not waking Alina, who lay resting peacefully after a night of vulnerability and raw closeness. Her trust had started to show subtle, fragile, and Otto felt it like a brand across his chest. And he would protect her, even if it meant sacrificing everything. The other dawn. "Get the car ready," Otto ordered his men. "And call my cousin. Tell him I'm coming, personally." The black limousine slid through Chicago's early morning streets, heading out of the city toward the guarded hilltop estate of Luke Bellini, a powerful don in his own right, respected across the Italian underworld. Feared, wealthy, widowed, but above all, untouchable. When Otto arrived, Luke was already in the courtyard with a glass of whiskey in hand, watching the fountains with idle elegance. "Didn't think I'd see you unless the world was ending," Luke smirked as Otto approached. Otto didn't return the smile. "Maybe it is." Luke gestured to the chair beside him. The cousins sat, two men raised in the same bloodline forged by fire and war. "So," Luke began, "you're here for help, to rally the Bellinis, to go to war." "Not exactly," Otto replied. "Then what?" Otto exhaled slowly. "I want you to take my place and marry Elena Medvedeva." Luke went completely still. The silence between them tightened. And then, with a slow, amused chuckle, Luke tilted his head. "That's bold, and what do I get in return?" Otto paused. But Luke leaned forward, lips curled into a half-smile. "Show me a picture of her." Otto pulled out his phone, scrolled through his gallery, and held it out. It was Elena at a formal event. Sleek hair, red lips, fire in her eyes. Luke took the phone. His gaze lingered. His eyes gleamed. "You don't need to offer me anything else," he said, handing it back. "I'll do it. She's fascinating." Otto gave a slight nod. "You just have to convince her father. Leave that to me." The meeting with the enemy. The next day, Otto requested a formal meeting with the Russian Pahan and his highest-ranking man. The gathering was held in a secured building under heavy guard. Elena was present, as were several Bratva generals. The long table in the center of the room felt like a battleground of silence. On one side, the Russians. On the other, Otto and Luke, seated like twin wolves in designer suits. Otto opened calmly. "I've come to offer a new solution. I don't want war. I don't want blood. I want to protect my wife and the child she carries." The Pakan's expression darkened. "You shamed us, tossed aside an agreement, humiliated my daughter." Luke leaned forward, voice smooth, deliberate. "I am Luke Bellini, Otto's cousin, a don in my own right. I am offering myself in marriage to your daughter, with full alliance and financial compensation for the inconvenience." The Pakan's jaw clenched. "And if I refuse?" Otto stood slowly. His voice dropped like thunder behind velvet. "Then blood will flow. I will burn down everything you love. I will end your name, and I will bury you myself. The weight of those words hung in the room like a noose. The Pakan stared back. And then, he raised a hand. Bring my daughter. The new groom. Elena entered, poised and calculating. She saw Otto first, eyes burning with betrayal. Then her gaze shifted and landed on Luke. Their eyes met. Something sparked. A silent current. Curiosity, interest, danger. The Pahan pointed at Luke. This is your new fiancé. Elena blinked, taken aback. Then she looked again at Luke. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. The Pakan spoke again. Do you accept? The war rests in your hands. Without breaking eye contact with Luke, Elena answered, yes. It was a single word. But it shattered every previous agreement. The Pakan extended his hand, first to Otto, then to Luke. Deal made. Luke Bellini's estate was as grand as it was silent all-white stone, towering columns, and a view of the mist-covered lake that felt almost surreal. The kind of place built by a man who knew how to command respect and keep secrets. Elena stepped out of the black car, head high, jaw tight. Her black dress clung to her body like armor, her hair loose down her back. She didn't flinch when she saw the armed guards. She was used to being watched. Luke was already waiting in the grand foyer, a crystal tumbler of whiskey in his hand. When their eyes met, he smiled slowly. Even more stunning in person, he murmured, offering his hand. Elena didn't take it right away. Then, finally, she placed her palm in his firm, unflinching. I prefer to be underestimated. Luke held her gaze. There was no amusement in his voice when he replied, Not a mistake I'd ever make with you. They walked into a private sitting room with leather chairs, warm lighting, and an untouched bottle of red wine breathing by the fireplace. Luke poured a glass for her and one for himself. Let me be clear, he said calmly. I know this wasn't your choice. I'm not here to cage you. She lifted an eyebrow, unimpressed. Then why agree to marry me? He took a slow sip before answering. Because I'm curious. I want to know who you are when no one's watching. And maybe I'd like to be the one who makes you smile someday. Elena gave a short, cynical laugh. Good luck with that. Luke didn't push. He smiled faintly, leaning back. You'll have your own room, freedom, no games. I may be dangerous, Elena, but I'm not cruel. She watched him closely. There was something different about this man. He didn't leer. He didn't demand. He simply watched and listened. When he finally stood to walk her to her quarters, he stopped at the door. He took her hand slowly and kissed the back of it. I promise not to be your jailer unless you ask me to. Her breath caught. And for the first time in a very long time, Elena felt seen. Night had already fallen by the time Otto returned to the secluded safe house. Elena was curled up on the couch, reading with bare feet tucked under a blanket. She looked up when he entered, her face softening. You're back. He nodded once, removing his coat and gloves. She stood, stepping closer. What happened? Otto met her eyes. It's done. No war, no blood. She blinked. How? Elena is going to marry my cousin Luke. The agreement stands, her father accepted. Elena's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but relief. She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. You did this, for me. He cupped her face gently between his hands. For you, for our child. For a future where no one has to die for our past. A tear escaped down her cheek. Thank you, Otto. He pulled her into his arms, and she went willingly. There were no more walls between them now, just skin, just silence, just the sound of two people exhaling for the first time in days. Later that night, they had dinner quietly, comfortably. Otto received calls from his men, from allies, even from Alina's father, whose voice cracked with emotion over the phone. "She's safe, that's all I ever wanted." Even Otto's toughest generals admitted, reluctantly, that his move was brilliant. Peace had been secured. But what mattered most to Otto wasn't the praise. It was the way Alina smiled at him now. And how, that night, she fell asleep with her hand resting on her belly, while he stood at the door watching her breathe. The room was bathed in the soft, pale light of dawn, filtering through linen curtains. The air was thick, a mixture of sweat, tears, and hope, hanging quietly in the stillness. Alina lay pale but resolute, her fingers tightly entwined with Otto's, who never once took his eyes off her. The baby's cry was the purest sound amid the chaos of the past weeks. After what felt like an eternity, little Victor was born a rosy-cheeked boy with dark hair and eyes barely opened to the world. Otto approached cautiously, fists clenched inside, struggling to hold back the flood of emotions. "He's perfect," Alina whispered, voice trembling. Otto smiled for the first time, a smile untouched by calculation or coldness. "Just like his mother." She turned to him, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you for staying with me, for not letting me fall." He squeezed her hand, his grip speaking volumes beyond words. "I will never let you fall, Alina." The days that followed. The small cabin was quiet, except for the soft breathing of the baby in his cradle. Otto, stripped of the Don's armor, sat beside Alina, who gently rocked Victor in her arms. The life of new parents was hard, sleepless nights and endless discoveries, but every smile from the child healed wounds no one else could reach. Alina felt stronger than ever before, and Otto revealed a tenderness reserved only for her. One cold night, Otto rested his hand lightly on her rounded belly. "You saved me, Alina, from a man I didn't even know lived inside me." She smiled, hope shining bright in her eyes. "We're saved together, no matter what comes." 3 months later, Luke and Elena's wedding. The Medvedev estate was alive with colors, music, and laughter, a whirlwind of luxury and tradition. But what truly captivated everyone were the exchanged glances between Luke and Elena, charged with passion and unspoken promises. Otto and Alina stood side by side, sharing a look that spoke volumes. Here, they were not just allies, but family. Luke's speech moved everyone, pledging protection and honor for the family now united by blood and choice. Elena, radiant, intertwined her fingers with Luke's and whispered something that drew a smile from him. In that moment, the past felt distant, the future full of promise. The official proposal, back home, away from the eyes of the Mafia and political alliances, Otto prepared a private moment. In the soft glow of the fireplace, he knelt before Alina, his gaze steady but tender. "Alina Petrova, daughter of a man who saved my life without asking for anything in return, I want you to be my wife, not because of duty, not because of any arrangement, but because my heart can no longer imagine life without you. Will you marry me?" Tears slid freely down Alina's cheeks. Tears just for her, just for them. "Yes, Otto, with all my heart." He pulled her close, kissing her with a quiet, true passion. They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The world outside remained dangerous, but in that embrace they had everything they needed. A love forged in fire, reborn in hope.
Before you go, let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story. Like this video to support the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.